The winds of change are blowing once again at Arsenal Football Club. While most headlines usually revolve around Mikel Arteta's tactics, star players like Bukayo Saka, Martin Ødegaard, or Kai Havertz, today the spotlight is firmly on the boardroom. One of the most powerful figures behind the curtain, Executive Vice Chairman Tim Lewis, has officially stepped down. And in his place, Arsenal have named Richard Garlick as the club's new Chief Executive Officer. At first glance, this may sound like just another administrative move, something that happens in the business side of football. But make no mistake, this is one of the most significant shifts in Arsenal's leadership since the Kroenke family took full control of the club. The decision could shape the club's strategy for years to come, influencing everything from transfer negotiations to financial planning, and ultimately, Arsenal's chances of returning to the very top of English and European football. So, today, we're diving deep into what this change really means. Who was Tim Lewis, and why was he so important? Who is Richard Garlick, and what makes him the man to lead Arsenal forward? And most importantly, how does this all affect the team we see on the pitch, week in and week out? Let's start with Tim Lewis. Too many casual fans, his name might not ring a bell. He wasn't out giving interviews, he wasn't sitting in the dugout, and he wasn't making social media posts. But in football, sometimes the most powerful people are the ones you rarely hear from. Lewis was one of them. He joined the Arsenal board in 2020. Right in the middle of the pandemic, a time of crisis, not only for football but for global business as a whole. Lewis had long been a close advisor to the Kroenke family, the American owners of Arsenal. A highly respected lawyer by profession, he specialized in corporate governance, legal strategy, and financial oversight. When he stepped into the role at Arsenal, he quickly became the man who bridged the gap between the Kroenkes in the United States and the football executives in London. During his time, Lewis was deeply involved in restructuring Arsenal's finances. Remember, this was a period when Arsenal weren't competing in the Champions League, and revenue was tight. He helped oversee cost-cutting measures, contract restructures, and a sharper focus on sustainability. He was also instrumental in shaping the long-term vision that Arteta and sporting director, EDU, have been working under, a vision of building a young, dynamic squad capable of growing together over time. But after 5 years in such an intense role, Lewis has stepped aside. The reasons haven't been made fully public, but many insiders believe this was a planned transition rather than a sudden departure. Which brings us to the man taking over, Richard Garlick. Garlick might not be a household name, but in English football, he is widely respected. Before joining Arsenal in 2021, he worked at the Premier League itself, where he was responsible for regulatory and football administration. He knows the rulebook inside out: contracts, player registrations, financial fair play, compliance, all the areas where clubs can get into trouble if they aren't careful. At Arsenal, he has been the director of football operations, working closely with EDU and Arteta on everything from contract renewals to squad registration for domestic and European competitions. Whenever you hear that a player has signed a new, long-term deal, like Saka, Ødegaard, or Saliba, Garlick has been one of the key men making it happen. He may not be celebrated on social media, but his fingerprints are all over Arsenal's recent progress. Now, stepping into the role of CEO, Garlick's responsibilities expand far beyond contracts. He will oversee the club's entire executive operation, from commercial growth to football infrastructure, from dealing with UEFA and FIFA to representing Arsenal on the global stage. This is a huge step up, but one that many say he has been preparing for all along. The Kroenke family clearly trust him, and that trust is important, because ownership at Arsenal has always been a sensitive topic. For years, fans have accused the Kroenkes of being too distant, too business-minded, not emotionally invested in the club. Remember the protests during the European Super League saga, the Kroenke out banners? That frustration hasn't completely gone away. By appointing Garlick, the Kroenkes are signaling that they want a steady, professional, and football-savvy leader to run the club day-to-day, while they continue to control the bigger picture from the U.S. So what does all this mean for the football side of things? Let's break it down. First, transfers. Arsenal have been smart in the market recently, investing heavily but also carefully. Declan Rice was a statement signing, Kai Havertz was a gamble, and young prospects continue to be brought in. With Garlick at the top, expect that balance to continue. He isn't the type to chase reckless spending. Instead, he will make sure Arsenal stay compliant with FFP while still competing for top players. That means fans can expect more strategic, carefully negotiated deals rather than wild spending sprees. Second, contracts and squad stability. One of Arsenal's biggest strengths in recent years has been their ability to lock down key players. Imagine where the club would be if Saka, Saliba or Ødegaard had left. Garlick's background makes him perfectly suited to ensure Arsenal's stars remain tied to long-term contracts, giving Arteta the stability he needs to build a dynasty. Third, the relationship with Arteta himself. Every successful football club depends on harmony between the coach and the executives. Arteta has been given more control than many managers in England. He's not just picking lineups. He's influencing transfers, academy integration, and the long-term sporting vision. Garlick has been by his side in the background for years. Their relationship is already built on trust, and that could be a key factor in Arsenal's future success. But it's not just about Arsenal in isolation. If we zoom out, this move reflects a bigger trend in football. Clubs are no longer run by old-school chairmen who operate on gut instinct. Modern football is dominated by lawyers, compliance experts, financial planners, and data analysts. The people running clubs today are often more comfortable in a boardroom than in a dressing room, and Garlick fits that mold perfectly. Take Manchester City, for example. Their CEO, Ferran Soriano, came from a corporate background at Barcelona. Liverpool's success under Jurgen Klopp has been tied closely to the careful planning of their executives. Manchester United, on the other hand, have often been criticized for chaos in the boardroom, too many cooks, poor planning, no long-term vision. Arsenal are clearly trying to avoid that mistake by appointing someone like Garlick who knows the football world inside and out. Of course, fans are divided. Some welcome the change, seeing it as a sign of stability and long-term planning. Others are skeptical, worried that the Kroenke are just tightening their grip even further and that Garlick will be more loyal to ownership than to supporters. That tension has always existed at Arsenal, and this appointment won't erase it. What's certain, though, is that this is a defining moment. Arsenal are not just fighting for trophies. They're fighting to position themselves as one of the truly elite clubs of world football. Off-field leadership plays a massive role in that battle. If Garlick succeeds, Arsenal could finally re-establish themselves as a dominant force, not just in England but in Europe. If he fails, the consequences could set the club back years. So, Arsenal fans, what do you think? Is Richard Garlick the right man to guide the Gunners into a new era? Or are we witnessing another example of owners pulling the strings while supporters are left to hope for the best? One thing's for sure, the next few years will give us the answer.